The gas station I worked at was located in a small, sleepy town where nothing much ever happened. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and life seemed pretty ordinary. But little did I know that this particular night would be anything but ordinary. It started off just like any other night. I was working my part-time gig, doing my usual tasks to keep the place running smoothly. The air was quiet, and there was a sense of tranquility that comes with the late-night hours. But that serenity would soon be shattered. As I was restocking the shelves, I heard the front door creak open. Now that wasn't too strange. Customers often popped in late at night for a snack or to fuel up their vehicles. But what puzzled me was when I turned to greet the customer, there was no one there. I glanced outside, half expecting to see someone walking away, but there was nobody in sight. It was as if the door had opened on its own. I brushed it off as a prank, assuming that some mischievous soul was trying to mess with me. But as the night wore on, it happened again. The front door swung open, and again there was no one there. This time I couldn't help but feel a knot tighten in my stomach. Something just didn't feel right. My unease reached a whole new level when I heard a loud thump coming from the back door. It was a heavy, unsettling sound that made my heart skip a beat. My mind raced with thoughts of intruders and potential dangers lurking in the darkness. I couldn't simply ignore it anymore. Driven by a mix of curiosity and fear, I made my way to the security cameras. I needed to see what was going on outside. As I reviewed the footage, my heart sank, and a cold chill ran down my spine. There on the screen, I saw a figure, a man wearing a dark hoodie. He was standing by the back door, fiddling with the handle, desperately trying to force it open. The intensity with which he tried to gain entry was unnerving, to say the least. It was as if his entire being was consumed by the need to get inside that gas station. But what made my blood run cold was when he suddenly stopped his frantic attempts and stood there motionless. It was as if he could sense he was being watched, his gaze fixated on the camera. I couldn't explain it, but his presence exuded an eerie aura, a sense of something deeply unsettling. With a trembling hand, I dialed the emergency number, reaching out to the police. I relayed the situation, desperately urging them to come as soon as possible. Meanwhile, my eyes remained fixed on the screen, my heart pounding in my chest. As I spoke with the dispatcher, my worst fears were realized. In one swift, horrifying moment, the man burst through the front door, shattering the glass into 1,000 fragments. Time seemed to slow as he sprinted towards me, his intentions unclear but undoubtedly malicious. Fear seized me, paralyzing my every movement. I felt trapped, cornered by this unknown threat. It was a nightmarish scenario, a terrifying climax to an otherwise mundane night shift. Thankfully, just when it seemed all hope was lost, the piercing sound of sirens pierced through the night. The police had arrived, their flashing lights illuminating the chaos that had unfolded. They swiftly apprehended the intruder, whose troubled state of mind became apparent. As I caught my breath, I couldn't help but reflect on the horrors that had transpired. The sense of safety and normalcy that had once surrounded me shattered like the broken glass strewn across the floor. From that night onward, the gas station would forever carry an air of unease, a reminder that darkness can seep into the most mundane of places. To this day, the memory of that night haunts me. The inexplicable opening of the front door, the desperate attempts to breach the back entrance, and the chilling charge towards me. It's an experience etched into my mind like a scar, a constant reminder of the fragility of our seemingly secure lives. It all went down at this remote gas station, tucked away in the middle of nowhere. The kind of place where the dark nights stretch on forever, and the only sounds you hear are the whispers of the wind and the hum of the gas pumps. Most customers came and went without a second thought, but there was this one customer, let's call him Mark, who always gave me the creeps. Mark had that look about him, the kind that made you think he was wrapped up in drugs or something sinister. He had sunken eyes, wild hair, and a constant sense of paranoia lurking behind his gaze. It was like he was haunted by his own shadow. And sure enough, like clockwork, he'd appear at the gas station late at night, slipping in and out like a ghost. Now, strange customers were no rarity during the night shift, but Mark took it to a whole new level. He'd come in, prowling the aisles with an unsettling energy, carefully selecting a few items from the shelves. His movements were quick and furtive, his eyes darting around as if he was being watched. It was like he carried the weight of 1,000 secrets on his shoulders. But one fateful night, something shifted in Mark's behavior. He walked into the store, and instead of his usual hurried manner, he lingered. He shuffled from aisle to aisle, picking up random items, inspecting them as if they held some hidden meaning. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end, sensing that something was deeply amiss. Unable to ignore my concern any longer, I mustered up the courage to approach Mark. As I offered my help, his eyes met mine, and I was met with a gaze so dark and sleep-deprived it sent a chill down my spine. It was a look that seemed to plead for salvation, for escape from an unknown torment. Without uttering a word, he abruptly turned and hurried out of the store, leaving me with a lingering sense of unease. But the strange encounters didn't end there. For several nights, Mark continued to visit, his behavior growing more erratic each time. It was as if he was caught in a never-ending cycle of confusion and despair. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was running from something, or someone. Then, without warning, Mark vanished. He disappeared for an entire week, leaving me with countless questions and a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach. Had something terrible befallen him? Or had he finally found the respite he so desperately sought? Just when I had given up hope of ever seeing him again, he reappeared, looking more worn out than ever before. His eyes carried the weight of exhaustion, yet there was something different about him, something unsettlingly calm. And in a surprising turn of events, he approached me and, with a weak voice, expressed his gratitude. It was the first time he had spoken to me, and his words sent shivers down my spine. But before I could comprehend the situation, chaos erupted. Out of the darkness, 4 shadowy figures emerged, charging towards Mark with a determined ferocity. They seized him, their grips relentless and forceful, dragging him towards a waiting minibus parked nearby. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared into the night, leaving me standing there in shock and disbelief. I quickly dialed the authorities, my trembling hands struggling to hold the phone. The police launched an investigation, but their efforts were in vain. They couldn't identify the men or locate Mark. It was as if they had vanished into thin air, leaving behind only questions and an unsettling void. To this day, I can't shake off the chilling memory of that mysterious customer, the haunted look in his eyes, the sudden appearance of those unidentified men. It's a story that continues to haunt me, reminding me that sometimes the darkness lurking beneath the surface is far more terrifying than we can fathom. So, my friends, keep your senses sharp and your instincts keen. You never know what secrets hide behind a stranger's eyes, or what horrors may unfold in the dead of night. And if you ever encounter someone as enigmatic as Mark, remember to tread cautiously, for the truth can often be more unsettling than any ghostly tale. Stay safe out there, and thanks for lending an ear to my spine-tingling story. The world is full of mysteries, my friends, and sometimes they come knocking on the doors of unsuspecting gas stations. It was an ordinary evening, just like any other. I strolled into the gas station, the smell of gasoline and stale coffee hanging heavy in the air. I grabbed my pack of smokes and a cold 6-pack, thinking it was the perfect night to relax and enjoy a drink or two. Little did I know that night would become a nightmare etched deep into my soul. With my purchases in hand, I stepped out into the darkness. The moon hung low in the sky, casting eerie shadows upon the deserted streets. I found a quiet spot to indulge in my vices, a place where I could drown my thoughts and forget the troubles of the world. But fate had other plans for me. As I settled in, taking a long drag from my cigarette, I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye. 3 figures emerged from the darkness, their hushed whispers barely audible above the distant hum of the city. They were dragging something, a man, limp and lifeless. Curiosity mingled with unease as I watched their every move. What were they up to? Were they just helping a drunk friend back home? I tried to brush it off, convincing myself that I was overthinking things. But the sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach told me otherwise. Minutes turned into an eternity as I sat there, my eyes fixed on the unsettling scene before me. The three men gently yet with an air of urgency placed the seemingly unconscious man on a bench nearby. Something about their actions sent chills down my spine, a gut feeling that all was not right. As the men turned to leave, my heart raced with a mix of fear and curiosity. I couldn't resist the urge to check on the man they had left behind. Was he okay? Did he need help? With trembling steps, I cautiously approached the bench, my senses on high alert. But as I reached out to touch his shoulder, the man suddenly jolted backward. His eyes flew open, wide with a mixture of pain and confusion. In that heart-stopping moment, time stood still. I stared in horror as his body fell back, revealing 3 gruesome bullet holes in his chest. The shock of the sight before me paralyzed my senses. My mind couldn't comprehend the brutality that had unfolded right in front of my eyes. Blood soaked through his shirt, seeping into the wooden slats of the bench. The stench of death hung heavy in the air, a sickening reminder of the darkness that exists in our world. Terror gripped every fiber of my being as I realized the danger I was in. I stumbled backward, my breath coming in short, panicked gasps. The world around me blurred as adrenaline surged through my veins. The men who had dragged him there, what were they capable of? Would they come back for me next? With every ounce of strength, I forced my trembling legs to carry me away from that nightmarish scene. Panic fueled my steps as I raced through the empty streets, my mind plagued by horrifying images. I knew I had to find safety, to distance myself from the unimaginable horrors I had witnessed. Finally, I reached the sanctuary of my home, but the safety of those 4 walls couldn't shield me from the lingering terror. Sweat dripped down my forehead as I locked the doors, my hands shaking uncontrollably. The darkness outside seemed more sinister, the silence deafening. I mustered the courage to dial the police, my voice trembling as I recounted the ghastly scene at the gas station. But when the authorities arrived, the men and their victim were gone, as if swallowed by the night itself. The officers searched every nook and cranny, but all they found was an eerie silence, a silence that echoed the depths of my own fear.